Let's briefly talk about the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, or IoT, can pertain to any device that can connect and communicate over the Internet. More specifically, most people and technology companies use the term things to refer to home automation devices and smart kitchen appliances and voice-activated digital assistants and similar things. We consider them to be things that go beyond the standard devices such as desktop PCs, laptops, smartphones, and tablets. We use the extremely weak term things because it's a loose definition, and it fits perfectly in this scenario because there are so many different gadgets within the category. IoT devices include thermostats, light switches, security cameras, door locks, refrigerators and other appliances, and smart speakers. Configuration of these is usually intuitive. Let's take a look at a basic IP-based camera now. And I've got the camera here. So this is just a basic camera that can be mounted. It can be mounted upside down or what have you from here. And if we look, it is powered via USB. It's got a little SD slot if you want to save any of the images or recordings. And it has a reset button here as well, just in case you need to reset to the original factory defaults, in case you can't get in, let's say if you can't remember your PIN or password. Okay, so pretty basic device. And over here on the smartphone, I have the software, the app that's used to control it. So we can control this and view what's on the camera, you know, from anywhere in the world, basically, as long as you have an internet connection. So it's cloud-based. This is cloud-based. So you have to be careful with cloud-based technologies. You want to make sure that you're using a reputable manufacturer, that you're watching your connection, watching the information that you put in. Be careful with what the camera's actually looking at, what you're displaying on the camera, and try to use a passcode or some type of PIN. Here we have the phone and the device, so we can show this. And this particular camera is called Office. And if we tap on that, we'll have to actually enter a PIN in there. So I'm going to do that now. And that'll start connecting. So what this is doing is it's going through the smartphone and the smartphone's Wi-Fi connection out to the internet and back and to the internet here and the Wi-Fi and connecting to this device and then looking out, and you can see some gear here. All right. I was thinking of using this device right here to program it, but just wasn't compatible. Anyways, we've got our device here and it's working. We can use the controls here to move the camera, but what we're interested in is the settings. So if we tap on settings here, you'll see that you can turn the device on or off, and that's one of the things that you want to do. If it's not necessary, turn the device off whenever it's not needed. Then if we go to camera settings here, you'll see the firmware version at the bottom. And that firmware version, you want to make sure that is up to date. This one is, but you know, some of the devices will not tell you when a new firmware version is available. Some of them will let you know, but maybe not in a very strong manner. This particular device lets you know, and it's showing in red, and you actually can't do certain things within the settings until you update the firmware. So it kind of locks you into updating the firmware on this device to try to keep them more secure. And if we go back, you'll see down here you can set the PIN as well. So you can enter in a PIN number. So at least it's something. All right. So that's basic configuration of this device. And pretty straightforward. You know, with a device like this, and I have other cameras set up as well, you want to make sure that you're setting this device up in a secure manner. So let's talk about that a little bit. The whole important part of IoT is how devices are connected to the SOHO network and how they are secured. That's because they all connect out to the internet, and the apps that control them may or may not have the most brilliant programming. And then you have security vulnerabilities. So I have a 9-step list here of what you can do to try to protect your IoT devices and your wireless network and your network in general. And so those are: 1, update the firmware on the SOHO router. Make sure that you've updated that firmware. Very important, because the SOHO router can be used as an attacking device as well if it's not up to date. There's always vulnerabilities being found on routers. Next, create a separate network. One good method is to use the guest network. I do that a lot. But some wireless access points have multiple networks that you can set up. You could use one of those networks for these types of devices, but the guest network works as well. That works well in a small office or in the home. So you set up that separate network and you place the IoT devices on that network. Configure strong encryption, for example, WPA2 with AES, and use a separate passcode from the main wireless networks. Consider disabling Universal Plug and Play, UPnP. That can make a user's life easier as far as discovery of devices and so on, but it can create security vulnerabilities if it is running. 4, update the firmware on the IoT devices, right? Update the firmware on the IoT devices. I showed that, showed where to go. It's generally right in the settings, and a lot of these devices will prompt you to do it, and make sure you get it done before you take any further action. 5, use strong passwords. I think I say this every hour or so of every day, but different passwords as well. Different passwords should be used for the main login to the SOHO router. Also, a different password for the guest wireless network, and a different password for the IoT devices themselves. If the IoT device only has the option for a PIN, you're only going to have 10,000 possible combinations, but it's better than nothing with a 4-digit PIN, so use it. Number 6, update the operating system. Update the operating system on the mobile device. You know, if you're running Android or iOS or the other computer that's used to configure and control the IoT devices. Update the app that's used to control the IoT devices. You know, that may not even show up. You know, you might update the firmware here, and that's great, but the app itself on the mobile device might need some separate updating. So you have to watch for that. Next, use only what you need. Use only the devices that are absolutely necessary, and disconnect or turn them off when they're not needed. And 9, carefully select and monitor cloud-based connections. If your device relies on the cloud for control, then be very careful with the manufacturer you select. You know, you might have a device that connects to your wireless network and you are connecting directly to it via the IP address or through DNS to your router. But if it's cloud-based, you have to be very careful. Careful with the manufacturer you select, the information you give. You know, you want to watch out for personally identifiable information, PII, as well as the actual connectivity that's made to the device. Every connection into your network increases the attack surface, and it creates new vulnerabilities. So there's a little bit about IoT. There are so many types of devices within the Internet of Things, and it's growing every day. These devices are used in homes, vehicles, the medical industry, transportation, manufacturing, you name it. They include devices that have embedded electronics, like sensors, and so on. We don't even know all the devices that are out there. It's growing so quickly. And because of the inherent security vulnerabilities found in many IoT devices, many companies will frown upon their use. So you have to be ready to check for an approved list of devices that you can use at work. And that's it for this video.